The pressure was never subtle. From the moment Caitlin Clark stepped into the WNBA, the weight she carried was outsized, historic, even. She wasn't just a rookie, she was the movement, the ratings spike, the ticket seller, the face on every promo and the name in every headline. And with each game, each play, each appearance, it became increasingly clear this wasn't just about basketball anymore. This was about carrying the expectations of an entire league on her shoulders. Every night, every possession, every second she was on the floor. But no one, no matter how talented, no matter how driven, is unbreakable.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
It started subtly, as it often does. A grimace here, a slower step there. The groin injury that sidelined her recently wasn't an isolated moment. It was the culmination of something larger. Months of nonstop grind, little rest, high contact, and the relentless responsibility to perform at a superstar level even when her body screamed otherwise. Clark's return to the court was supposed to be triumphant, and in some ways it was. Her impact never truly disappeared. Even while managing pain and setbacks, she remained a game-changer, bending defenses, spacing the floor, and making everyone around her better. But behind the competitive fire and signature grit, there was something else brewing, an exhaustion that couldn't be iced or taped or stretched out of practice. The groin injury only brought it to the surface. When she went down, it wasn't just the physical pain that shook people, it was the emotion. The camera caught it. Her eyes welled, and for a moment, the mask slipped. You could see the accumulation of everything she had been enduring. The exhaustion, the frustration, the silence around it all. Clark had pushed through injury before, but this time was different. This time, it wasn't just her body crying out. It was her spirit. There was no tantrum, no dramatic exit, just the quiet unraveling of someone who'd been holding too much for too long, with too little support. And that's what makes this so critical, not just for Caitlin, but for the WNBA as a whole. She's not just a star. She's the star. The one drawing in new fans, shattering viewership records, and putting the league in conversations it hadn't reached in years. But somewhere along the way, in the frenzy to ride the wave she created, the human beneath the jersey started getting lost. The groin injury wasn't just a groin injury. It was the result of playing too many minutes too soon after a quad strain that hadn't fully healed. It was a schedule that left little room for recovery. It was the wear and tear of being targeted on defense every single game, with officials turning a blind eye to the excessive contact. It was the emotional toll of being heckled, criticized, and scrutinized, not just for her game, but for her presence. People forget, Clark has played nearly nonstop for over a year. From her record-shattering college run to an immediate transition into pro ball with no offseason to recover. No reset, no pause, just go, go, go. And now she's paying for it. What's even more alarming is how preventable this all feels. The Indiana Fever had a chance to manage her minutes better, to give her more rest, to listen when her body showed signs of fatigue. Instead, they leaned harder. They pushed. They gambled on short-term hype instead of long-term health. And Clark, as fierce and loyal as she is, never said no. That's what competitors do. They play through the pain. But that doesn't make it right. Now, with her sitting more games and visibly emotional in public moments, the question isn't whether Clark can keep going. Of course she can. She's proven that 1,000 times. The real question is, should she have to? And more importantly, who's protecting her? Because it's not just the injuries. It's the way she's been allowed to be treated by opponents and refs. Game after game, she's been battered with physical defense that sometimes crosses the line and rarely gets called. There's a growing feeling that she's being sent a message. You may be the future, but you still have to earn respect the hard way. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's how it's always been in the WNBA. But if that message is delivered through neglect, bruises, and emotional collapse, then something has gone very, very wrong. There's also the psychological toll of being expected to fix everything. When the team wins, it's because she performed. When the team loses, The headlines ask what's wrong with her. There's rarely space for nuance, for the idea that maybe it's not always about the stat line or the three-point percentage. Maybe it's about the fact that one woman cannot carry a franchise, a fan base, and a media cycle while healing from multiple injuries and processing constant scrutiny. And still, she shows up. That's what makes Caitlin Clark remarkable. Despite everything, she keeps giving. She stays humble in interviews. She supports her teammates. She never deflects blame. But even the toughest competitors need to be protected from their own drive. Because when they give too much and don't get enough in return, it catches up. It always catches up. The Fever's win-loss record, at this point, doesn't matter nearly as much as what this season has revealed about the system. A system that was not ready for a star of Clark's magnitude. A system that didn't know how to ease her in, so it shoved her to the front and crossed its fingers. A system that prized ticket sales over long-term sustainability. And now, the consequences are here. This isn't about whether Caitlin Clark finishes the season, or takes time off, or re-evaluates her place in the league. It's about what the WNBA does next. Does it finally step in and say enough is enough? Does it start protecting its players, not just with rulebooks, but with intentionality? Does it start valuing the human experience as much as the highlight reel? Because Caitlin Clark isn't just a star. She's a mirror, and what's being reflected right now is not pretty. What's happening with Caitlin Clark isn't just a cautionary tale about overuse or mismanagement. It's becoming a much larger conversation about what it means to be too good too fast, and the dangers of what that success invites when systems aren't built to support it. Caitlin didn't ask to be the center of the WNBA's entire marketing strategy. She didn't beg for the weight of a league revival. That came to her uninvited, wrapped in confetti and corporate excitement. It's what happens when a league sees a generational talent and doesn't have the infrastructure or emotional intelligence to hold space for her success and her humanity. She was drafted as a savior, but no one ever asked if she was okay being that. Behind the sold-out arenas and record-breaking streams, Clark has been living under constant surveillance. Every tweet, every interaction, every call not made in her favor is picked apart. And the problem isn't the attention, it's the isolation that comes with it. Fame is supposed to be about celebration. But for Clark, it started to look like a solitary spotlight. Bright, blinding, unforgiving. You can see the fatigue behind her eyes, even in the pressers. She smiles, she jokes, she keeps it together. But there's a difference between being poised and being protected. And she hasn't been protected. Not from injury, not from media noise, and certainly not from the relentless contact she absorbs every night on the court. There's also the subtle yet ever-present resentment she faces from within the league. Players who've been grinding for years without the spotlight she brings. Veterans who feel the game's been about hard work and humility. Suddenly watching the new kid on the block get shoe deals, primetime slots, and preferential coverage. That tension may not always be spoken, but it simmers under the surface, and Clark has to navigate it while trying to prove she belongs. Imagine that, being the best and still needing to prove yourself. Even the concept of team chemistry becomes more complex when you're Caitlin Clark, because it's not just about how you play with your teammates, it's about how they perceive you. Do they see her as a teammate or as a franchise, a sister or a symbol? That ambiguity creates friction, especially when roles start to shift and expectations become unspoken. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just unfamiliarity. But unfamiliarity breeds discomfort, and discomfort in a locker room can become isolation very quickly. Her connection with players like Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull seems genuine. There's a mutual understanding there, one forged through shared frustrations and a drive to elevate the team beyond just the narrative surrounding Clark. But even those bonds are tested when the noise gets too loud. Let's not forget, this is a rookie, a first-year player already playing like a 10-year vet, both in skill and in responsibility. The fact that she's had to confront issues of officiating bias, physical targeting, and institutional indifference this early in her career is staggering. Most players are still adjusting to pace and travel. Caitlin? She's already dealing with burnout, politics, and being told to toughen up when she's clearly holding her body together with sheer willpower. The recent emotional moment, whether people call it breakdown or just a rare glimpse behind the curtain, was the most human she's looked since entering the league. And it took that vulnerability to remind people she's still just 23. She's still figuring this out like everyone else. She just happens to be doing it while the entire basketball world watches. It's easy to romanticize toughness, especially in sports, especially for women. The be strong, be quiet, play through it mentality is baked into the culture. But where has that gotten past generations of players? How many stars have burned out before their peak? How many voices have been silenced under the guise of being a team player? Clark has become a turning point, not because she demands special treatment, but because her situation demands reassessment. Are we protecting our talent, or are we simply using them until they collapse? And what message does this send to young athletes watching from afar? That no matter how hard you work, once you're good enough, your pain becomes invisible? That talent comes with a price you're not allowed to question? Because Clark's story isn't unique in terms of pressure. What makes it alarming is how public it's all been, and how little has been done to adjust course. The solution isn't bubble wrap or load management alone. It's structural, emotional, cultural. It's reimagining what support actually looks like. Support isn't a quick thank you tweet from the league office. It's real investment in player wellness. It's an official who knows how to protect superstars, not punish them for their popularity. It's coaching staffs who understand that minutes on the court are not the only measure of value. It's teammates who aren't afraid to speak up when the system isn't working. Sophie Cunningham's growing presence as both a player and a voice has been one of the only encouraging signs in this situation. She's called out officiating, stood by Clark, and brought both performance and leadership when it mattered most. But even that raises the question, why does it always fall on the players to advocate for themselves? Where's the accountability from the top? The league desperately wants to grow, and Clark is their rocket ship. But rockets don't fly without ground control. And right now, the WNBA is showing serious signs of disconnection between its stars and its systems. They want an icon. They got one, but they didn't build the infrastructure to support what comes with her. And if they lose her, not literally, but emotionally, physically, creatively, it's not just a tragedy. It's a failure, a preventable one, because Clark isn't asking for anything outrageous. She's asking for the basics: rest when she's injured, protection when she's fouled, space when she's overwhelmed, and the ability to focus on playing the game she loves without carrying the entire league on her back. That shouldn't be revolutionary. It should be normal. And if the WNBA wants to keep building, it's time they treat their foundation like something worth reinforcing, not just showcasing. Caitlin Clark doesn't need the league to survive. But the league? It absolutely needs her to thrive. In the silence that followed Caitlin Clark's emotional unraveling on the court, one truth lingered like smoke after a fire. This league is not built for longevity, at least not for stars like her. Not yet, anyway, because when you zoom out, Clark's situation is just a symptom of a bigger, structural problem that's plagued the WNBA for years. It's still learning how to handle star power. For decades, the league functioned without needing to accommodate global phenoms. It existed in survival mode. Tight margins, modest attention, humble promotion. But when a figure like Caitlin Clark steps in, a player with mainstream fame, millions of fans, and the power to shift public discourse overnight, the WNBA's outdated systems start to crack. Take media obligations, for example. In most leagues, rookies get time to settle in. They speak to local media, maybe do a few national hits during standout games, and slowly grow into the spotlight. But for Clark, from the moment she was drafted, it was a full media circus. National interviews, morning shows, pressers where she had to answer not just about basketball, but about race, gender, league politics, and social responsibility. And she did it, graciously, eloquent, focused. But there comes a point where even grace starts to grind you down. When you're being asked to speak for everyone, veterans, rookies, the league, the culture, and no one is speaking up for you. That's not media exposure. That's exploitation wrapped in a smile. Then there's the internal politics. Every league has locker room dynamics. unspoken codes about respect, hierarchy, and earning your place. And no matter how brilliant she is on the court, Clark walked into a league full of veterans who fought tooth and nail for years just to get acknowledged. Some welcomed her, others didn't, and some remained publicly supportive while privately resentful of what she represents. The rapid commercial evolution of a league that didn't include them. This isn't about jealousy. It's about emotional tension. When one player becomes the face of the league overnight, the locker room doesn't just become a team. It becomes a battleground of expectations. Is Clark getting special treatment? Is the offense designed around her? Are sponsorships skewed unfairly in her direction? And underneath all those questions is one unspoken reality. The WNBA isn't used to handling a marketing machine inside a basketball jersey. That confusion trickles into gameplay, too. Defenders don't just play her tough because she's good. They play her hard because of who she is. And officials? They're not equipped for it. They're unsure whether to protect her as a valuable asset or treat her like just another rookie. That indecision leads to inconsistency. And inconsistency leads to injuries. This isn't just about how Clark is playing. It's about how she's being played. By the system, by the culture, by expectations she didn't create but was expected to uphold. And what's most tragic is that she still loves the game. You can see in the way she plays, how fast she thinks, how selfless her passes are, how effortlessly she hits shots from the parking lot. This isn't a player coasting on hype. She lives and breathes basketball. But when everything around the game becomes harder than the game itself, even passion begins to flicker. Behind the scenes, the toll mounts. Limited recovery time, nonstop travel, interviews, team meetings, video reviews, practice, physical therapy, treatment, then repeat. And when you're the biggest name in the building, no one asks if you're okay. They assume you are, because you're still smiling, still showing up. But showing up doesn't mean you're whole. And in Caitlin Clark's case, she's been showing up half-broken for weeks. That groin injury didn't just rob her of mobility, it robbed her of momentum. The quad injury before that chipped away at her strength. And the absence of proper support, medically, emotionally, professionally, kept her from healing completely. Now we're at a crossroads. The Indiana Fever need her. That much is obvious. But they also need to learn how to not over-rely on her. Every successful franchise understands that development is a marathon, not a sprint. If Clark is being asked to be the franchise cornerstone, she can't be treated like a patch for every broken play or a Band-Aid for every weak quarter. She needs to be part of a larger vision, not the entire vision. And it starts with redefining what success looks like. Success isn't just winning games. It's creating an environment where players can grow without being burned out. It's making sure your best player doesn't feel like she's one injury away from irrelevance. It's protecting the spirit of the game by protecting the people who play it. The league can't afford another narrative like this. Not after putting Clark on every billboard, every promo reel, every ticket sales strategy. If they let her fall through the cracks, it's not just a PR nightmare. It's a loss of credibility. It sends a message to every rising star watching from the sidelines. The moment you shine, the moment you carry us, you stop being a person and start being a product. But products break. People need rest. People need care. Caitlin Clark's story is still unfolding. She may return stronger. She may choose to rest longer than anyone expected. She may reevaluate what success means for her and how much of herself she's willing to give to a league still learning how to give back. Whatever she decides, one thing is clear. Her impact is irreversible. She has exposed both the brilliance and the flaws of this league. She has sparked discussions about physicality, about mental health, about rookie treatment, about player empowerment. She's elevated the standards. And with that elevation comes responsibility, not just for Clark, but for everyone around her. Her teammates must continue advocating. Her coaches must protect her with smarter rotations and thoughtful minutes. The league must re-examine its policies and priorities. And the fans? The fans must see beyond the logo and the headlines and remember that the players they idolize are still human. Caitlin Clark may be the most important figure in women's basketball today, not just for what she does with the ball in her hand, but for what she forces the world to confront when she's hurting. This isn't a fall from grace. It's a call to grace. Because greatness should never come at the cost of health, dignity, or peace. And if Caitlin Clark has to be the one to teach us that, so be it. She's been carrying enough. It's time the system carries her for once.